Dear students, in this video lecture, we will learn managed versus unmanaged code and garbage collection, right? So let's start. So before going to the garbage collection part, first we will look the difference between the managed code and unmanaged code. Means what is managed code and what is unmanaged code, right? So here there are three differences in managed code and unmanaged code. Now what is managed code? So managed code is that code which is executed with the help of compiler, right? Not directly by the operating system, right? So the first difference is the code which executes with the help of compiler, right, and instead of operating system, right? Now what is unmanaged code? Unmanaged code is that code which is executed directly by the operating system, right? Now the second difference is the managed code will provide some services like garbage collector, type checking, and exception handling, right? Why they provide these services? Because these are the services which will be available in the runtime, right? So the managed code will provide the automatic garbage collector, type checking, and exception handling, right? So in unmanaged code, these services are not provided. These services means the garbage collector, type check-in, exception handling. So in unmanaged code, how to handle these services? These services can be handled by the programmer explicitly. Means the programmer will write a piece of code, right, for these services. For example, if you want to deallocate the memory, right? So programmer should write a piece of code for deallocation of memory, right? In in managed code, the garbage collector deallocates the unnecessary memory because these services are provided by the common language runtime. So here we'll have automatic, right? Or here we will do it manually, right? So this is the second difference. The third difference is the in managed code, the code is compiled by the language specific compiler to intermediate language, which means if you have written your program in four different languages, for example, if you have written your program in C sharp, you have written your program in VB, you have written your program in Python, you have written your program in C++. So you require a language specific compiler that will compile your managed code to intermediate language, that is called MSIL or CIL, Microsoft Intermediate Language, or Common Intermediate Language, or simply IL, Intermediate Language, right? Here in unmanaged code, the code is directly compiled into native code, means the target language with the help of operating system. So these are the difference between the managed code and unmanaged code, right? So now let's move to the garbage collector part, right? What is garbage collection and what is include in garbage collection, right? So let's start. Now what is garbage collection? So we can say that it is a part of common language runtime to allocate the memory and to deallocate or release the memory at runtime, right? So it is a part of CLR, right, to allocate and deallocate the memory at runtime, right? So with the help of garbage collection, the life of any programmer or developer is easier for writing code, because all the allocation and deallocation part of the memory takes place at background automatically, right? A deallocation means the release of the memory, and allocation means to giving the memory in the particular space, right? Now, what is allocating and deallocating memory? We will look this in detail, right? So when we develop any application, the application can be of any type. We can have window-based application, you can have web-based application, right? What is the most important concern is the memory, means the allocation of memory and the deallocation of memory. So what is the purpose of garbage collection? The purpose of garbage collection is to provide AMM. What is AMM? AMM is when I will call GC is garbage collection, right? What is AMM? AMM means automatic memory management. So the purpose of garbage collection is to provide automatic memory management, which is called AMM, right? So to clear the memory, we have two ways, right? So first, we can do it manually, but the manual task leads to error, right? Next is the automatic, which is provided by the garbage collection, right? Which cannot leads to error. This will automatically release your memory, right? You need not write any piece of code in your code, right? Any piece of code in your application, right? So we have two ways. Right. Now let's look what is allocating memory and what is deallocating memory. So when we say allocating memory, right, so it means how the GC, the garbage collection, manages to store the data in memory, right? Which means when we create an object, right, so it will store in a space, in a memory space, right, which is called a managed heap, right? So the allocation of memory is done in managed heap while we create an object, right? So the object requires a region of this address space for the process. So this is called the managed heap, right? So when you are working in any language and creating an object, right? Maybe the object is of a reference type, right? It is stored in managed heap. So these reference type are allocated in managed heap. When you are working in with any language, either you work in VB, either you work in C#, right? You have to create an object which is of reference type. So this is stored in managed heaps, right? So the data structure is heap, right? It is stored in the managed heap, right? So what it is, the storage is very fast, because means the retrieval and the allocation of the memory, the allocation of the object is very fast, because it keeps a pointer, right? So it keeps a pointer to the next address, right, where the next object in the heap will be allocated. So if any new object comes in the heap, it will point to the next address, and it will store in that particular location very fast. So allocating and accessing memory from the managed heap is faster, right? So this is all about the allocating memory, right? Now let's look the deallocation of the memory. Now what is deallocation? Deallocation means to release the memory, right? for that objects which are not in used, right? So this is done by the garbage collector, right? GC. So it performs a collection and removes the unused older objects from the managed heap, right? So it removes the older objects from the managed heap, right? So it releases that object which are no longer being used, right? The second point is roots of each application either refers to an object or the managed heap is set to null, which means the root means which will root is the starting point of the first element of the managed heap. Root is the starting point of the first element of the managed heap. Root, here I'm writing, it is the starting point of first element of managed heap, right? So it is the first element of the managed heap. So when it release the memory for object, the managed heap is set to null, or it referred to any object in the managed heap, right? Now the third point is the garbage collector can access the list of active roots. Active roots means in which in the managed heap in which there are some elements that the just-in-time compiler and the runtime maintain, right? The active roots means the elements of the managed heap that the JIT compiler and the runtime maintain. So the garbage collector can access those active roots, right? So this is the third point, right? So this is deallocation of memory for managed code. So these 3 points are for managed code. Managed code means the code which is compiled by the CLR, right? Now for the unmanaged code means which is compiled by the OS directly. So the code which is directly compiled by the operating system. So for releasing that objects from the memory, we have to explicitly call the dispose method for that, right? So for unmanaged, we have to write some piece of code, a dispose method, and call that method explicitly in our application, right, for releasing the memory for objects, right? So for managed code, keep in mind for managed code which is in which the code is compiled by the CLR, is done automatically, right? The garbage collector will done automatic allocation and deallocation of memory. And for unmanaged code, the code which is compiled by the operating system directly, we have to explicitly call a piece of code or dispose method to deallocating the memory or to releasing the memory, right? So that's all for this managed unmanaged code and the garbage collection part. Thank you.